morning, guys. It is day number 1 of the Bassmaster event on Harris Chain.
Music bed.
That's a freaking giant!
Music bed. Music bed.
Oh my god!
Well, welcome to my dorm room. Second follower gets $10,000.
$10,000 a follower.
We're going to give you a story of what just happened. We're back in Springfield, icy roads, 30-degree weather versus the 70 that we were just in. Harris Chain wasn't good to us.
Not at all. Not at all. They actually finished 269th out of 275, which is, for the debut, I guess, you know, you could say that we can't get any worse unless we zero at the next one.
Right.
But we had 2 fish day 1 for 2 pounds even. We actually had 2 fish for literally about the same weight the next day. We ended up not weighing those in because of just the amount of time we had to drive back. So we were like, yeah, we'll save us an hour and try to get back on the road. But man, it was tough. We only weighed in 2 pounds, literally 2 pounds even. Finished as the last boat that weighed in.
Yeah. It wasn't what we hoped for or expected. So we're gonna kind of tell you what happened, honestly. So we got to Harris Chain on Sunday of Sunday before the tournament. Ended up having to run to Kobe's house 1st, so it kind of took us a little bit longer than we had expected to get there, but we ended up driving through.
The night.
The night, yeah.
I think we got there in about, I don't know, maybe 18 hours.
Yeah,
Give or
18,
take.
18 to 20 hours, I think it took us. Kobe's house wasn't too far out of the way, so we had to go pick up his truck. But so we got there Sunday. We fished for about half a day without any bites or anything. We were just kind of fishing around spots and getting to know the lake more than anything, because I've never been there and Kobe's only been there a few times. So just kind of running some new stuff and getting a feel for it. So going into Monday, just started fishing, what we thought that we were supposed to do, trying to find holes in the grass or shell beds or transitions and stuff like that. And I spent most of the day doing that, and it just really didn't work out.
I think we caught like 2 shorts all day, and then we caught one like 3-pounder really shallow. No reason at all.
Yeah.
So
We spent the day, most of the day, just trying to do what we just knew what was supposed to win. Honestly, it wasn't necessarily our game fishing offshore like that, but we wanted to at least try it and see if we could find something. And so since we haven't really ever, been taught how to find shell beds or done it ourselves, it didn't really work out for us in practice. So going to Tuesday, we ended up just trying to change plans completely and do what we wanted to do. What we were most confident in, and that was obviously fishing shallow. So why don't you kind of tell what happened on Tuesday?
So we ran. This is Apopka. Yeah. So
Tuesday.
we ran down to Apopka the second day. We kind of wanted to separate ourselves from some of that boating pressure.
Yeah.
We knew the run times would be absolutely insane in the tournament if we had to go there, and we found fish there in practice. But we wanted to try it because we knew if we didn't, it would probably linger in the back of our heads.
Definitely, it would linger.
So we went down there, for half the day. It was actually a really cool lake. It was probably 2 to 6 inches of visibility almost everywhere. Some places were really bad. You could almost, it was terrible. But we found a little bit cleaner water. That was nice. And we really just, we got a lot of good footage there. So we were having fun with it. Up till about 12 though, we really hadn't had much luck fishing wise. We found this one probably half-mile area. It was really, really good. We think the big females were there in practice either because of the weather. It was warm. There was a front coming in, so we think maybe they either pulled up there and they were eating, or they were trying to spawn. I think it may have been the second of the two, but we can't really confirm that for sure. We went in there, I think literally 10-15 minutes apart. I had caught a 5 and a 6. After that, we kind of backed out of that area. We're like, this is the best we've got right now. This could be like one of those spots where you pull in and catch 30 pounds. You never really know. But we wanted to save as much as we could, considering we didn't have that much up to that point. So we backed out of there, and we tried to replicate that all the rest of the day on Apopka, and we literally could not find another spot like that. We actually didn't catch another fish anywhere else outside of that spot.
Yeah, so we spent literally, the rest of the day Tuesday and most of the day Wednesday trying to find that same pattern on other lakes and in Apopka as well, and it just wouldn't work. It was the weirdest thing. And so by the time practice was over, we basically just decided that, okay, it's one spot. If they're there, we could possibly win the tournament. If they're not there, then who knows what's going to happen. But we decided to put all our eggs in the basket because we really didn't have anything else. We had some stuff that we could probably catch a limit, but we knew just from previous tournament weigh-ins that, catching a limit of 7 pounds or 8 pounds isn't going to do you any good anyways. So we thought it was best to run with that, and I think most people would have if they would have caught a 5 and a 6 pounder back to back and kind of knew why they were there to some point. We kind of had a pattern going with them, or we thought we did, and so that's what we did going into the tournament day.
And a lot of guys, even the guys there at the lock the morning up, were basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
They're like, this is all we got. We found one spot. We think we can catch some fish up here. And outside of that, everywhere else, we're not getting it done.
Right.
So I think we were all there for about the same reasons, and it just so happens we were one of the boats that came back empty-handed.
Yeah. So I mean, morning of, I guess we should go back and tell them about the hospital stuff.
Right. So fast forward to probably Wednesday. It was Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was Wednesday night.
I actually hadn't been feeling good like the whole week leading up to this point. I'd had some terrible right side pains, and I wasn't too worried about it. I'd dealt with this kind of thing before. I thought about going to the ER just to make sure so I didn't have to worry about it, because we still had 2 or 3 solid days of fishing left. And I decided to hold off. So come Wednesday night, it was still there. It was really bothering me. So I was like, we're off the lake early today because of tournament regulations. I'm going to go ahead and go to urgent care and just see if they can make sure I'm not dying of like appendicitis or something. I need emergency surgery. So I went to urgent care. They told me I needed to go to a freestanding hospital, so they sent me there. I was kind of glad they sent me there because they can't really keep you overnight unless they transfer you somewhere else. So I knew the odds of me having to stay all night were pretty low.
Yeah.
But I got to this hospital, blood work, CT scans, just all your normal testing. Everything came back normal. I was there for probably 4 or 5 hours. I think I got back to the hotel at like 11:30 or 12.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's late. And I actually had the keys to the rod locker in the truck. We had forgot they were in there. So Lane couldn't rig while I was gone. So we actually did all that the morning of the tournament. We woke up we got some good sleep, woke up at like 4, got to the lake by 5. Everything was put in. We were boat like 58, so we had a little time. We rigged everything up. We were prepared to go. Everything else was ready prior to that night.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday morning was really good. It was our first Bassmaster College takeoff. It was super fun, and the way that they do it is, they call out your names, and they have an announcer, and they have music and cameras and all that stuff going around. So it's super hype, and it makes you feel really good. So we were feeling really good. We had our morning adrenaline going, and takeoff was awesome, because we had a 2-hour run ahead of us, so we were pumped up anyways. There wasn't really that fear of somebody getting to your spot first, honestly, because
and we knew we had the potential fish to win the tournament. And
yeah,
it could go either way. We knew that. So, there's a lot of anticipation there.
Yeah, we were just super pumped about being able to go and fish like we were fishing, flipping with heavy rods and heavy tackle was what we were excited to go do. And knowing that those fish that we had were potentially there, we were just ready to go. So the run down there, we ended up having a little bit of boat trouble. Had some grass stuck up in my motor, and it was overheating. And
we actually weren't the only ones. There were probably 2 other boats that were overheating. We'd hop up after idling, and automatically the boat would go into Guardian mode for half a second, and then it would let us go again once the motor cooled off. But there were boats hopping up on plane and stopping, hopping up on plane and stopping, all the way to the lock. And what sucks is we actually got passed by 3 or 4 boats, so we actually had to sit through a whole nother lock time because the lock only holds 3 boats at a time. So that bumped us back another 30 minutes or so, but it wasn't overall a huge deal.
Yeah, it was, like you said, literally all it was just, about 30 or 40 minutes. So it wasn't terrible, but also wasn't, it wasn't the best start to the morning that we were hoping for. Yeah, so once we got to our spot, we were like, all right, let's do this, and we started fishing, and we were really confident even getting there too, because there was nobody there. We didn't really, some of the boats that we were following in, they went different directions, and so we were like, okay, well, nobody else has found this spot.
And to keep this in mind, the guys that were at the lock with us were straight Florida hammers. Some of the guys that always do good down there, so we were really pumped. We were like, dude, we might actually be on some fish here.
Yeah, and so and looking back too, we talked to a lot of them coming back, and some of the people that had come out of there on day one had weighed 20 plus pounds, and so we were like, we were confident that we had something good, and so we went down there, started fishing. We fished for probably I think it was 2.5 hours. We set a time. We didn't want to leave past, or we didn't want to stay past 11:30 because we were like, well, we still may be able to salvage this with something else that we had previously found. And so we left there at 11:30, and on our way back, as soon as we hit the canal, my boat started shaking.
Yeah.
And so I hopped it off pad, looked at my motor, and it was like wobbling, and I was like, oh boy.
Initially we thought, because we actually crossed over a giant net, and Apopka, they are constantly netting like shad and these like almost like paddlefish. They're weird looking.
Yeah,
I remember seeing them. Anyway, so we thought maybe we had some net in the prop or like some grass.
Yeah.
And I knew the vibration felt like we threw a prop because I've actually thrown two. But I was like, it would be worse, I would think, if, it was that. I remember laying tripping on the motor, not seeing no grass, and I'm like, what the heck is it? And I remember spinning the prop just a little bit, and there was just like a tiny little bit. It was like the tip of one of his blades were gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, man, that really sucks. That's just enough to ruin it.
Yeah. So, and if you don't know, you can run one like that, but it's definitely not recommended. I mean, if you absolutely have to, you could idle. But with what we were doing, I mean, this was in Apopka, so we were 2 hours away, or at least a good hour, and that's, I mean, literally running 75 miles an hour, so idling would have taken forever. And so we called the tournament director, and he allowed us to get it up on the bank back it up on the bank so that we could fix it. I had a spare prop, had a wrench and all that stuff, and as I pulled the prop off, I noticed that my spare didn't have a hub kit in it. Rookie mistake. I've never had to do that before, and so I was like,
And keep in mind, we also can't really bang out the other one because we had nothing. Literally nothing. We didn't have a hammer. I probably may have been able to get it out with like a wrench, but we really didn't have anything that I could really smack on a screwdriver to get that hub out of there. So that was kind of
and I honestly wasn't even sure if I knew that they had to be pressed in, but I didn't know how if that would damage it or anything like that. We were pretty ignorant on that. So I ended up calling obviously called the tournament director and tried to see what we could do, and thankfully, after several boats had passed us, Logan Hopper, shout out to him, he ended up stopping in his Phoenix boat and had a prop with a hub kit in it, and was gracious enough to let us use his
for the rest of the day.
Yeah, for the rest of the day, and so we got back. It didn't really delay us that long. I think it was probably
maybe 30 minutes.
Maybe 30 minutes, no more than probably 45 minutes. Because I mean, once we had that new prop that he let us use, I mean, it was just on and off real quick. So we got to the lock, and we actually left the lock at the same time as some of the other boats that had weighed big bags in. So it was pretty confusing for us, looking back on the day. We ended up salvaging it. Well, I say salvaging it. I mean, we ended up catching those two fish in the dumbest little spot. I mean, it was just
never fished it before.
Never.
We actually lost two more in there.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So I mean, we had 15 minutes to catch some fish, and we caught two like instantly.
Yeah.
And then lost two more like right back to back.
Yeah. So we could have potentially weighed 5 pounds, but we only came in with 2. So, but that was pretty much day one. It was a mess. It was stressful, but at the same time,
we didn't really make the right adjustments.
Yeah.
And our fish had obviously moved, whether it was the wind blowing in there just so hard that day, or the weather being changed a little bit. For some reason, those fish moved off the bank, and we were not able to find them again. So and we didn't. Coby stayed. I think you stayed flipping, and I was behind you trying to switch it up.
I threw a chatterbait and a spinnerbait, and I was swimming a jig outside of the grass,
trying to play
like
the conditions.
Yeah, fan casting outside of it, and then just for some reason, I don't know. We don't know what happened to them. The biggest difference I think that we saw was the wind changed directions, and it was blowing straight into that stuff. So if those fish were bedding fish or staging fish or something, we think there was too much wind that was blowing in there, and we didn't really know how to adjust to that. we didn't know if they pulled off or something like that, because it was closer to deeper water, so that may have been something. But
Right.
honestly, we weren't confident enough to say, okay, well, let's graph out here and try to find them. You know, just because that hadn't been our game all week, you know, the past 4 or 5 days, and it was like, well, we're not really confident enough to sit out there and graph and try to catch them offshore because we haven't done that. So we made the run back and dealt with all that, ended up catching those 2, you know, and came back scratching our heads. Once we had heard that 29 pounds was leading it after the 3rd bag weighed in, you know, it was like, okay, well, there are big fish being weighed in. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, recouping Thursday night, went and, you know, spent a couple hours on camera equipment and rigging stuff, and
Doing a little bit of schoolwork, just the whole shebang.
schoolwork a little bit. I'm going to talk about that for a second. So one of the biggest things with this channel, what we want to do is kind of show y'all what college life looks like with fishing. For the high schoolers that are looking to come up into the sport, what tournament fishing in college looks like. And so something that Drury is about, especially, is you're getting your grades and getting your degree, you know, how important that is.
Very academically strong school.
Yeah, so they really stress that a lot, which is a good thing. You know, that's ultimately why you go to college, is for a degree. And you know, having Rick Emmett as our coach, he helps us a lot with, you know, making sure that we're doing that. And so one thing that we learned throughout last week that it is not easy.
It's not easy, absolutely not. And you got to be very, very open with your teachers. You got to talk to them often.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you just straight up and leave, there might be some problems you run into. You got to let them know you're leaving.
Yeah.
And coach does his best to reach out to these teachers, but you know, there's only so much one guy can do for 30 dudes. So you know, you really got to take some responsibility on and get some of that done yourself.
Yeah. So Thursday night, I mean, we just tried to recoup, and we were really scratching our heads.
Yeah, we were. I mean, it's our first tournament, so I think we were upset, but we weren't like just out of it. We knew we could go out tomorrow and catch some fish and try to, you know, make the best of the tournament. And we were learning. We learned a lot, actually.
Yeah, a lot.
But we knew if we put our heads down and went to work, maybe we could scratch up something and, you know, make the best of it.
Yeah. So I mean, which I think Friday, day 2, we ended up having more opportunities and seeing more fish.
Absolutely, yeah.
To catch, just by the way that the day played out. So we had made the decision to stay close and not burn all the gas out of the boat, because it was just so much risk at that point. And I don't know.
And we weren't sure. It actually had gotten even colder.
Yeah.
And the wind was still blowing about as bad in about the same direction.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a long way to go to get there and be like, well, they're not here again. Got to run all the way back. So, you know, we wanted to try to catch a limit.
Yeah.
And just, you know, make the best of it. But
yeah. So day 2 came. We stayed close. We were fishing around, just fishing canals. And we, going into the tournament, we did not want to do that.
Not at all. Because that's what we felt like that was what the mid pack would do.
Yeah.
You know, those 13, 12-pound bags. And that's really about what the limit was there. I mean, you really weren't. There was an exception, I'm sure, of a few guys that, you know, found a 10-pounder on bed or something. And they apparently did move up the second day. And there were some big girls on bed. But at the same time, the ceiling was about 12 to 13 pounds a day, I'd say, in the canals.
Yeah. So, I mean, we tried to do that. And honestly, that didn't even hardly work out for us either.
No, it really didn't.
But we ended up finding a canal that had potential in it, and that was really like the highlight of the tournament for me. Besides the 2 big fish, but being able to see all the fish that we saw in beds back there.
Some real big Florida fish.
Yeah.
And I mean, a ton of fish just schooling and everything. And this is like clear water. I'm talking about like, this is like some mountain reservoir water.
Yeah.
Like it might be clearer than mountain reservoir water. I mean, it was like crystal clear straight out of the spring. You could see a fish from 50 yards away, like crystal clear.
Yeah. No, the water was it was like literal straight spring water that never gets churned. I feel like is the best way to describe it.
Hasn't seen mud a day in its life.
No, and even whenever we were going back there, whenever you do kick up the bottom, it's like it's not mud.
It's clean. It's like mossy and clean.
Yeah, it was like little leaves and stuff like that. So it was cool. But I mean, we went back in here and I mean,
fish everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere.
Bass, shad, tilapia. There were fish everywhere back there. And once we got to the very back, we rounded this corner, and I wish we could have recorded it.
There were some straight giants in there.
There were some giants.
Mm-hmm.
We saw one. Well, the first, good fish we saw was probably a 4 or 5 pounder, and it was just swimming. Of course, in that clear water, whenever you get a boat length away from them, they're just real hard to catch at that point.
Right, yeah.
And they weren't locked on beds or nothing. They were just roaming around. And so we saw that one. Of course, we flipped to it, with a wacky rig and stuff, and it didn't want none of it, And so I was just, while I was fishing around that, which you can see it in the video, we'll have to show you, Coby turns the corner, and I think his jaw drops a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, we'll have to share the audio in the video.
Yeah, for sure.
Holy shoot!
Right.
Oh my freaking plane. It's like a dime. Oh my. Wait, it's a 10 pounder. Look at that.
Realistically, the fish was probably
7 or 8. It looked spawned out.
It looked spawned out. It was super long.
Super long fish. Like it had the length of a double digit, no doubt.
It had the length. I think it had the head too. It was just spawned out. I think.
Super skinny, about head back, but it was huge, like a straight giant. I've never seen a fish so long.
Yeah, and it was clearly a bass. But it was super cool. So I ended up actually flipping a glide bait to it on our way out. We saw it again. And because by the time we saw it the first time, we were literally on top of it. And so on our way back out, I tied on a glide bait because it wasn't, I was like, we might as well just try to catch the thing.
Right.
And the first flip, I flipped out there and that thing turned back around and was like...
on a beeline toward that thing. Like he was ready to eat that thing.
It was ready to get it, but I don't know what it was, if it was too close to the boat.
I think it was just a little too close to the boat, but man, I've never seen a fish that big just like turn around, like drop everything it's doing and just fly straight towards it.
Its whole demeanor changed. I wish we could have recorded it, but it was...
And also, the glide bait almost kind of like flipped over just at the wrong time and like kind of got stuck, and it kind of...
Yeah,
threw it off.
I mean, it was a cheap glide bait, and I won't say what brand it was, but it was a cheap glide bait, and I wish I would have tied on one of the good ones, but you live and learn, I guess.
Yeah, and we also didn't want to throw like a massive one, so we tried to pick out like an intermediate, like just a decent size one.
Yeah.
That just so happened to be the one we picked up, and yeah, I mean,
she wasn't really having it.
I thought we were gonna catch it, but
yeah, I was. And it really made me mad because I don't ever catch them on a glide. I hadn't really thrown it much, and I just so happened to tie the thing on, and it was like the first flip, it was a 7 or 8 pounder.
Just coming toward that thing. And it doesn't help. We're like, not screaming, but verbally saying all this very loud. And then we turn to our left, and there's like a boat 5 feet from us, and we didn't even realize. So.
Yeah, so we're going around the corner, and you'll see it in the video. We're both turned away from where the boat's going, trying to catch this fish, and there's a boat coming up literally like 10 feet from us.
Yeah.
Coby turns around. I'm still fishing for it, and it literally goes under our boat, straight towards them.
Yeah, just like, I'm sure they saw it.
Oh, surely. And we literally just start talking to them randomly, and then as soon as they go by us, we're still watching the fish under our boat.
Yeah. So that was fun. I actually enjoyed that a lot.
That was definitely fun. We didn't catch the fish, unfortunately.
We didn't end up catching anything out of there. I think it was so clear that we ended up like having to leave and finding more canals.
Yeah.
I think it was later we went and found some little bit dirtier ones. Lane started catching a few on a wacky rig.
Yeah.
But man, overall, we just were not. I mean, even for those canal bites, it was like, you know, every hour we'd get a bite. And they weren't big fish, and we'd lose some of them. So you know, we were just on a struggle bus.
I mean, day 2, the pattern. The bites that I was getting was in the canals. It didn't really matter where in the canals, as far as how far back, but they were around the lily pads.
Yeah.
So I think one of them was in the very back, and one of them was really close to the mouth. But still, I mean, we still only had those 2. I think we only had 2 bites on day 2.
I think, we lost a few maybe. One under the dock I lost, and then
oh yeah, that's right.
Then maybe one more after that. I don't know.
Maybe,
but,
yeah.
We did find a couple males on bed that day too, like really locked on.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we just could not get anything to work in our favor. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was like everything was stacked against us. I don't know exactly what it was, but I mean, looking back, I don't know.
Looking back, we probably should have spent a lot more time in the grass, whether that was burning through it or really slowing down and fishing it. Maybe even sticking around some other boats, like where there were high groups of boats. Because, I mean, there were a lot of boats catching them, and I think if we would have maybe, instead of trying to find something super special, would have just, like, kind of went back to the basics and just slowed down and fished some of that grass real slow. Eventually, it would have ran onto some fish, but I'm still not sure, you know, we would have had the chance to win it like we did.
Right.
I really think if, you know, the conditions hold off one more day, we had a good shot at catching a good bag the first day. We didn't really know if it'd hold up for 2 days in the pocket, but we weren't worried about that. We were just worried about the day. And that didn't end up working, but I mean, we learned a lot, and we just didn't make the right adjustments at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about the, you know, looking offshore, because I think if we did go back, I mean, when we do go back, I think something valuable to know is how to find those shell beds on your electronics. Because shell beds down there is a huge thing, and we did end up figuring out how to find them. We just basically ran out of time.
Yeah, I would say either they just really weren't keyed in on the shell beds yet, or they had already passed that point trying to get up to spawn the ones that would be on them, or we just didn't really find the right ones.
Yeah, we may have just found the ones that just weren't holding fish, which I was proud that we were able to figure out how to find them. And so we were, the way that we did it is, I'll go through a video. I'll post another video on how I set up my Lowrance units. But basically, side imaging was the biggest thing for us, because on side imaging you can tell the bottom contour in a way. You can tell where grass is, and you can tell where it gets hard, and you can see that transition. You can't necessarily see like
little pebbles or shells.
Pebbles or stuff. I mean, you can if it's like super intense. But whenever we did end up finding shell, it didn't look like shell.
It was more of like just your normal ambery color, and then boom, like a white hard spot. And then it would drop back off again. Yeah,
so the way that a hard spot shows on an HDS unit for sure is it gets super bright. Relative to everything else, it gets super bright.
And it's usually pretty obvious, I'd say. I mean, once you really know what to look for, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, compared to grass, it's literally day and night difference. I mean, with grass, you can be like, oh, that's grass. You know, with a hard spot, you can't necessarily say, you know, that's shell,
but you can see a hard spot, whether it be, you know, rock or just real sandy bottom, or you know, whatever it may be. But you could definitely tell it's something harder than normal.
Yeah, so once you find those hard spots, you can go through and actually fish them and feel the shell. But that's how we ended up finding shell, and we found some really good shell spots that we thought were like, no, there should be fish here. I think we probably fished, I don't know, around a dozen of them maybe.
And I mean, we caught a few fish off some of them.
Yeah, we did.
I would say, you know, one of the most unique spots we found had boats on it every day. It was a little deeper than we probably wished it was. But, I mean, I even had a bite there one day. But there were fish there. We just couldn't, for whatever reason, they didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, that spot was the weirdest thing. You couldn't really see it on the graph, but we just kind of ran into it, and just the way that it worked out was, it just, I mean, we thought
any other lake, bro, you would smoke them on that.
Yeah, I mean, we thought that would be just straight money, and we didn't. I mean, like you said, I mean, we got one bite on it, and
we fished it for hours, probably 2 hours.
I mean, we graphed over that so many times back and forth and fished.
And there were multiple. It wasn't like one. It was like a series of them. But
Yeah.
they were all next to these holes, and I mean, it was just like right outside of a spawning pocket.
Yeah, it was
And the
the
wind was
craziest
blowing on it
spot.
good every day. I mean, it should have just been the money spot.
Yeah.
They just were not there.
Yeah, it didn't work out. I mean, I think probably every time we go there, we'll have to
Check it.
check
I
it or
would.
something. I mean, it's a really good pre-spawn staging area.
Yeah.
What we found, but they weren't there. So, I mean, that's pretty much day 2. I mean, besides the 18-hour drive home, that's pretty much it.
And yeah, we did forget about. We actually had to change to another prop
Oh,
the morning
yeah,
of
yeah, that's right.
the second day, just because the guy needed his prop back, and he had somewhere to be. I think he had to leave early.
Yeah, Logan needed his prop back, and so I. By the time we got off the lake Thursday, all the marine shops are closed, and so we couldn't get anybody to get me a new hub kit, and I wasn't really sure still at that point if I could get it out. And so I texted Brock Villa. He's on our team. He's a senior. He had a spare prop, which was great. He was like, "Yep, you can use it. I'll get it to you in the morning." So Friday morning came, got there early. Brock had some issues getting to the ramp, which was fine because at that point the field had flipped. So we were both
Almost dead last.
yeah,
number.
218, I think is what it was. And so
Music bed.
upon trying to get the prop on, I've changed several props before, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna change the prop. And so whenever we tried to get that thing on, it would not go on.
I think it was actually something wrong with his insert. I'm not sure
Yeah.
if it was just the wrong one or something. One of the grooves weren't
Yeah.
fitting right, but
Well, so it's a different hub that was normal, but it was supposed to be for a new one, and they had got the wrong one or something. And so Brock spent the next, I don't even know, 45 minutes. He ended up calling a Mercury Tech. Thankful for those guys to be able putting my hub in his prop and just on the flash. And so big thanks to Brock for getting that. We did end up getting on the water, of course, and which I was thankful for that. We didn't have to trolling motor around all day.
Right.
We could actually run the lake and
try to learn some more.
yeah, try to do something. And so that was pretty much
Pretty much the tournament.
the tournament for us. Well, with that being said, our video comes to a close.
First ever TKF video. I think it's pretty sweet. Hope you guys would enjoy it.
If you're not already, comment, subscribe, like the video.
Do the whole shebang for us.
So stay tuned. And we'll see y'all next time.
See you.